Hey everyone, it's TJ Tara. I kind of wanted to talk about um, the recent slamming that took place in the South Carolina high school with a young lady by police officer Ben Fields at Spring Valley High School. Now, since the video surfaced on mass media, I've been seeing quite a large range of various opinions on what happened there. Um, it's very important that we do not assume things and make judgments based on her racial identity. And I've been seeing a lot of people, including black people, um, especially a lot of white people, questioning what exactly the young lady did, as if what she'd done would have justified Officer Ben Fields' um, body slamming on her. Now, I'm here to examine the facts of what we do know about the case. And for those of you who don't know, I'm here to inform you of the facts of the case so that you do not assume that this girl did something. And I also want to address the fact or the problem that a lot of black people I notice usually tend to assume that a black person must have done something to receive a punishment, as if they can't, as if America does not have a history of assaulting black people, of oppressing black people, of even making irrational laws against black people and doing unjust things and even admitting it. And then it's just like, yeah, we did it. So, sorry guys, so on and so forth. And this has become the culture in America where people do things to the black body or to black individuals, and everybody feels as if maybe they did something, or even if it's admitted that it has been done, there's no justice. So, anyway, before I go all off a topic, let's just get straight into this case with this young lady. So, basically, the girl was asked by her teacher to get off her cell phone. That's what the original problem was. But the young lady refused to get off the phone, and so the teacher called the administrator, and the administrator told the girl to leave the class. The young lady felt like she didn't do anything, so she refused to leave the class. So the administrator basically called the deputy, or the cop, Ben Fields, into the room, and he requested for her to get out of the classroom. The young lady tried to explain to him that she didn't do anything, and Officer Fields then went to take matters into his own hand in a very aggressive way and grab the young lady and flip her out of the seat. Um, he slammed her and dragged her across the room, and apparently some of the other students were able to be brave enough to record it. Otherwise, he probably would have got a slap on the wrist, because there were several cases against him in the past in which he has done things to other students, and he was suspended for with paid leave. And the issues weren't addressed. But I don't know if anybody realizes this, but a lot of issues within the black community, when it comes to race or police brutality or anything, when there's no evidence, it just gets pushed aside or swept under the desk, or the rug, rather they say. But in this case, thanks to the brave children who were not like, oh my god, and turned their head away, and were able to pull out their phones and record what was going on, we were able to see this, and the situation was brought to light, and she was able to get some sort of justice. Um, Now, there were a lot of witnesses to this. A lot of the classmates even stated that the young lady didn't do anything, and the teacher and the administrator stated basically some similar things to what the students were saying, as far as her not getting out of her seat and not leaving the classroom or getting off the phone. Now let's talk about uh in the video, you can actually hear that the girl really didn't say much, but you can also hear the police officer speaking and then slamming her or whatever. So if the young lady was going off, we know how people get when they're going off. We would have heard her. We would have seen her acting rowdy as well. So for those to assume that she did extra to deserve what she had gotten done to her, it's absolutely unacceptable. We have to also take into consideration that the facts that we don't know about the young lady. Now, I know for a fact I'm a college student. When I'm bored or when the teacher is give one of my professors are giving a long lecture, I tend to check my phone. I'm gonna be honest. Now, I don't see why the young lady couldn't have checked her phone. Do I approve of phones in school? The debate is so-so. However, phones in school also allow the scene to be captured on camera for us to be able to make sure the girl gets justice. So that is the benefit to having cell phones in school. Um, to record what happens. It's not like the cops in school wear body cameras. Um, the young lady, however, recently, within the past few years, lost her grandmother and her mother. She doesn't have her father in her life, and she's living in foster care. So, as you can imagine, she's probably already going through a lot of stress, and this situation, I'm sure, will leave her very traumatized for the rest of her life. For all you people out there judging her and don't even know her, a 16-year-old girl in South Carolina, where there's a lot of racism still down south, and she had to go through this. And on top of it, she's in foster care. Now, the injuries that were reported to her lawyer, from her lawyer, they said she suffered face injuries, neck injuries, arm injuries, and is wearing a cast on her arm due to the police slamming her. So she's dealing with a lot of injuries and trauma, and they're actually suing the officer who was first suspended and is now fired. I actually think that he deserves to be arrested because his actions were completely unacceptable. I do not think that because you enforce the law that you should be above the law. If you do something wrong, you should be punished. Justice should be served for this young lady. Now imagine all of the people around the country, all of the young people in high school and college and public schools that this happens to, and the incidents aren't recorded, that are swept under the rug. I mean, like I said, Officer Fields had several cases filed against him and complaints filed against him in the past before this case was caught on before the situation was caught on camera with this young lady. He slammed a pregnant girl in I think 2014 that was, and then you have a young man, Ashton James Reese, who was expelled from Spring Valley. Officer Fields said that he was a gang member, and it turned out that he wasn't. According to complaints in the school, Officer Fields assumed that a lot of black children were gang members and used that as a technique to be able to address these children and enforce his law on them. Yeah. A lot of kids got expelled. They're not going to get back into the school. All for him. And then later you find out that he's a racist and he harms black children and he's been getting away with it way too long. But anywho, I mean, just thinking about this case, there's stuff that goes on around the country, and it's just spiraling out of control. Not just in schools, but in general. I mean, people get mad when people want to march and say Black Lives Matter, and we're not saying that no lives matter. It's just that in America, there's been a history of Black lives not mattering, and it apparently still doesn't matter. Alone in 2015 thus far, it's been reported that at least 1,100 black people were killed so far in America by police. Thousands are killed every year. So just police. We're not talking about actual race crimes. That number is in the hundreds of thousands if we add them both up. And we only hear about what, maybe a small 1% of them on the news or newspapers and magazines. It's very sad that they'll quickly cover Tyrone who robbed a bank or shot someone, but won't really cover nothing like um, all these black people being killed. But we have, if you do your own research, you find that the government posts these numbers. There's researchers that post their statistics and numbers on all the people that were killed, and it's actually heartbreaking. We see 1%. Police in schools actually come from the history in America of police shooting, and you'd be surprised or not, because I'm not actually surprised, that America actually has a history of school shootings. And ironically, although the shootings are taking place in white schools, they're putting them in the urban neighborhoods, the police in urban neighborhoods and schools. And since the police has been enforced in schools, there has been a dramatic increase of urban youth, black Latino youth, who are now in jails, youth facilities, and arrests have been made on these people. And they're coming out with records, disenfranchised before they even get out of high school, before they even come out of junior high school in some cases. A lot more police started getting put in schools after the Sandy Hook shooting in 2012. But I did my research and I found that school shootings in the United States date all the way back to the 18th century. Recorded July 26, 1764 in Greencastle, Pennsylvania, four Indians entered a school near Greencastle, American Indians, and were shot and killed by Enoch Brown, who also killed 9 to 10 more children. Only 2 people survived. In the 19th century, you have school shootings from the 1840s all the way up to the 1900s, starting with a shooting in Charlottesville, Virginia, by Joseph Seams, who shot his law professor at the University of Virginia, John Anthony Gardner Davis. Then 1850s, Louisville, Kentucky. Student Matthew Ward took a pistol out of school and shot the schoolmaster, and so on and so forth. Then you go into the 19. There's been about what, at least 20, 30. Actually, it looks like maybe about 50 shootings in the 1800s, school shootings in white schools. Then you have the 20th century shootings, where even more students were killed. We're talking about the numbers look like they tripled, from 50 to hundreds of school shootings in white schools, starting the 1900s off in September 3rd, 1990, in Boise, Idaho. A student opened fire. And shot and killed H.B. Eastman. These names are kind of hard to pronounce. I'm going to skip ahead. 1903, 1904. Yeah, it's been a shooting couple of shootings almost every year in the 1900s. I'm going to skip ahead closer to modern times. 1980s, you got Arkansas, Texas, Michigan, Alabama, Nevada, Colorado, Missouri, California, Michigan, Kansas, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Montana, Illinois, Utah, all states in which in the 80s, 1980s, schools had shooting cases, majority of them in white schools. Then in the 1900s, 2000s, 1990s, and then the 2000s, we have more shootings. The worst shooting in 2012 was Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook shooting, in which how many people were killed? Looking at my research here, 21 injured by two white shooters, Eric and Dylan, at the Columbine High School. Which is actually absolutely ridiculous if you ask me. You know, people talk all this mess about, you know, what black students are doing and how we need police in black schools. However, all these shootings that's been taking place have taken place in white schools. You know. Anywho, studies show that white males constituted 79% of secondary school shooters. That was reported in the New York Times in their research. So, you know, those of you who say, where did the police come from in schools? That's where they come from. Um, it's actually ridiculous. This young girl did nothing. So why do we assume that she did something? How many of your friends have done nothing and have gotten in trouble? How many times have you been stopped and harassed and done nothing and gotten in trouble? It's a shame that we must assume that whenever a black person gets in trouble, they must have done something. But in many cases, they didn't. And even if she did open her mouth, she got slammed. Her neck is messed up. Her back is messed up. Her hand, her arm is in a cast. Does she deserve that for opening her mouth in a country that promotes freedom of speech? I leave this conversation with one thing. You know, going into my notes here, looking for amendments here. Equal rights. We have equal protection rights, supposedly. Let's see here. Okay. Equal protection rights under the law. But there are so many people not protected under the law. Actually, this is the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment. Equal protection under the law was put into place. However, it excluded certain, it excluded immigrants, it excluded people under 21, and also excluded people who were criminals or felon holders, have done criminal damage or committed a criminal act. And a lot of people, as you know, were convicted of criminal acts that they weren't even guilty of. The system is not about always providing justice. They make billions of dollars by putting people in jail every year. There's non-for-profit prisons. who make money off of each bed that they fill, who make money off of selling free labor of inmates, you know? That's going way off the subject. It's been a history that we face in America that we don't like to talk about, that has played a role in media only oppressing, manipulating, exploiting black people. And research actually shows that black people actually watch, was that 45% more television than any other race, than the white race? So if we're the main ones watching TV, yeah, African Americans watch 40% more TV than all other people. That's according to research. 40% is a lot. And we're the ones watching these news channels and these shows. So, more so at least. So not only are people in the world manipulated by seeing black people as criminals all day on television, we're being manipulated ourselves to tell ourselves that that black person right there must have done something to receive that treatment. We're 14% of the population. You understand? How are we 14% of the population and portrayed about 90% on in media networks, on news and stuff? You understand what I'm saying? Why are they focused on us? You would think that we're like 70% of the population and we're just messing up big time. Just watching the news and reading the paper all day. That's not even the case. But that plays a role on us. We start to think to ourselves, damn, we see ourselves on TV all the time, we always in trouble. I know sometimes I watch the news and they start talking about somebody and I'm like, damn, tell me, I hope he not black. Please don't tell me he black. Oh man, he black. You know? I wish they would even promote the news equally throughout the races. It makes us think that we're bad people. And I know we're not bad. Not all of us. And I know that the system puts a lot of innocent people away for crimes they didn't do. Because some of us can't afford a lawyer. And public appointed lawyers have about 50 cases. I've seen cases where lawyers can't even remember a person's name. They got all these cases on their mind. How good do you think they could fight? Why do you think that often people offer plea bargains? Because they don't have the time to fight your case when they're fighting 50 other cases. A lot of people are in jail that are innocent. But we assume that a lot of us are guilty. We assume that there are children who do things just because. This girl has no mother. If she did act out, she has nobody. She's in foster care. There's a lot of kids like that. The mass incarceration system puts so many of us in jail. Breaking up families. And you wonder why kids act out? She's a teenager. She's a child. She's allowed to be immature. So why must we look down on her? Why can't we remember that? I sympathize for her. Actually, watching the video, my heart broke. Seeing her get slammed. My heart breaks even more watching people say, well, she must have done something. Especially when it's black people. Why must she have done something? Stop letting the news manipulate what you think about your kind. Then y'all get mad at Raven for saying she won't hire black people. But some of us say ignorant stuff. And I'm not justifying what Raven does. I don't even want to talk about her no more. Because I'm disgusted with her. But us, who I believe in, who I have hope in, who I know loves us, but doesn't know how to remember that all of us are affected by media exploitation, oppression, in some aspect of the way. Some of us cry out in ways that others of us don't understand, but we must. We are oppressed people. This young lady did nothing. She was a victim. So sympathize with her. Don't assume that she is something that she's not. Put a little history in there for y'all. Hopefully, the next time something happens, you take into consideration of the history in America before you sit there and judge why this man got choke-toed, why this black boy got beat up by the cops, why this little black girl got slammed on the floor. Because everybody's not guilty of something. Sometimes they are just a victim. And we've been victims since slavery. To be honest. You a victim now. Living in a poor neighborhood and you paying taxes. And your kids' schools don't even got the books that the other schools got because they sending your tax money to their schools. But isn't the taxes supposed to be distributed equally? I'll say that for another discussion. May justice be served for that young black girl. And I hope Ben Fields goes to jail for his actions. Peace out.